Hello and welcome to Slooh's Clubhouse clip that's coming to you right after one of the most incredible events this year, the 2015 total solar eclipse. What we're going to be doing today is we're going to be giving you the play-by-play of what's happened throughout this incredible adventure that the Slooh team has gone on on an expedition to the Faroe Islands, what we've seen there, what's happened, and getting a first-hand perspective from Slooh Observatory engineer and our astronomer in the field, Paul Cox. And here he is now coming in with us. And yeah, we're going to have an excellent discussion today that's going to include some pictures and footage that we weren't able to show during the live broadcast yesterday. That's going to give you more insight and just more really background on what happened there. There's some really spectacular shots that we're going to be able to show you today. So look forward to this, and it's really going to be a lot of fun. How are you doing over there today, Paul? Has it been really just a cathartic experience to just have this over with and to be able to have experienced this total solar eclipse?
To be truthful, no. Yes, I kind of only just finished work tonight, catching up with emails and sorting out some issues at the observatories, and prepping for this and prepping for tomorrow. So, this isn't for my enjoyment. These expeditions, it's not a jolly for me. It's for me to kind of collect all this information, all these beautiful images, and feed them to slewers out there. So yeah. But it's still a fantastic experience.
Slewers, I like that term. But
Slewers,
there's
yeah.
just there's so much that you've collected, so much that's happened on this expedition, and it'll be amazing to just hear all about it today. I'm really
Yeah,
excited to be able to talk with you about this.
yeah,
And just to get started with it, we have this beautiful video that
yeah.
really gives you a whole new perspective on this eclipse from the Faroe Islands. And so, could you tell us a little bit about this as it's starting to happen here?
Well, center in the image right there, you can see the tall building just in that port that we were located on, the tallest building. That was the hotel we went to our special eclipse supper at. But what this is, the Faroe Tourist Board hired a helicopter for the day, and they flew over all of these areas where all of the eclipse watchers were kind of hanging out. They flew over the town. But what we're going to see in a minute is this was an ingenious idea, because a helicopter static. Now, it's long been a strategy to fly planes above the clouds. Airliners, they do airline trips, to miss the clouds and see the eclipse. But a helicopter is static. So these guys were able to fly above the clouds and just stick their camera straight on it. This is a bit of a weird shot. We reckon they've just put a pair of eclipse glasses in front of their camera, but there are, look at that,
Oh,
diamond
there it
ring.
is.
This is what was going on over our heads through this layer of clouds. And we had that very brief kind of 2-second flash of it through the clouds. But the tourist board in the Faroe Islands did a fantastic job. Look how dark this was, Eric. That was the biggest comment from all of the veteran eclipse watchers. They have never ever known an eclipse where it has gone so dark. I mean, it was like pitch black of night, but look at that shot. I've never
So
seen a shot
gorgeous.
like this. You know, you haven't got when they're flying planes, you always see a little bit of the porthole and stuff like that. This is just such a good idea. So on the next Slooh expedition, I'm ordering a helicopter. I can fly. I have a private pilot's license. So we are going to go above the clouds next time. How's that?
That would be so cool to see that sort of thing live. That would just be gorgeous. And it's so crystal clear and just beautiful to
Yeah,
see the scenery
yeah.
here.
And as in a helicopter, they can't go to that higher altitude, so they're only probably a few thousand feet. There may be 5,000 feet, something like that. But it was sufficient to get above those pesky clouds that bothered us all day long. And there's a still shot from it. I mean, it's just you can see in this that there's something odd about the lighting, and this is what's impossible to describe. You know that there's something unnatural about the light, the way it hits the clouds, the landscape, but you just can't quite put your finger on what. And there was this beautiful kind of, it's a grey, silvery glow to everything. It was the most amazing lighting. So even though we didn't see totality from the Faroe Islands, although a couple of people did glimpse it, and we got a shot from Slooh's Will Gator in a second that we'll show you. He got 2 seconds of it as well. But it was just an amazing experience to see this very odd lighting, but it did go just pitch black. And if people watch the show back, it surprised me. There's one moment in it, and I say, Eric, look behind me. I'm sitting in the dark, and we didn't have the lights on because we were having a photograph through the window, so we didn't want the reflection and stuff like that. But suddenly, I looked around and you get that context, and it's just alien. The whole experience is alien. That's how I would sum it up, I think. But look at
It's
that
something that
shot.
really sticks with you. Yeah,
Totality right above our heads.
yeah, I've stuck on this shot for a little bit because I think it's so gorgeous and it speaks to so many of the things that you were talking about. In that we
Yeah.
see this really just clear shot of totality. You also see the eerie glow beneath this incredible lighting that
Well,
I
I've got a
think that
sneaky. Sorry, Eric. Folks, we got a bit of a time delay for Eric and I, so do apologise if we talk over each other a little bit. But in this one, we're seeing a shot of totality, but you can see that there's some illuminated ocean there. So that's where the shadow of totality hasn't reached yet. So what we're witnessing here is the moon shadow, the edge of the moon shadow as it goes east, because that's east, yeah, as it goes east, so I hadn't actually spotted that in this image yesterday, but that's what we're seeing there. Because if you can imagine, you can see the shadow, can't you, where it starts and where it ends, it's impossible for that sea to be illuminated if it was in totality.
there's just a gradual growing wall of darkness. It's just
Mm,
it's amazing to see just that geometry in motion. Absolutely beautiful.
yeah,
Here's
yeah.
here's another one that's coming in from them. It's just that
Yeah,
eerie
now
glow over
this
the
was
ocean.
roughly from the same vantage point that we had, and this was the kind of view that we were getting. And I know we didn't see totality from our location, but the clouds kind of added to the drama. They certainly added to these wide field shots. And if you remember at one point in the show, I actually kept saying to you, Eric, go back to our shots here, because I zoomed my camera all the way back to give this wide field shot to try and illustrate this peculiar lighting, that was going on, not just at totality, but in the partial phases as well.
I think that folks that are making a suspense thriller movie would be jealous of this natural lighting that is just
Yeah.
occurring on
Well,
this scene
yeah.
here. It's
Yeah,
it's
and the
so
suspense of
telling.
the eclipse as well. I mean, it's just, I'm sure that is one of the things that really enhances and increases all of these emotions that people feel when they see it, because there is this anticipation, but there's also the anticipation that it's going to end very quickly, which kind of makes that moment, even more special. Now, this is our image from Slooh's Willgator. I mean, How cool is that? He emailed me last night. Well, I emailed him. I said, "Hey, Will, how'd you get on? You know, did you?" He actually came over here for the day. Would you believe? He got a flight from the UK, came for the day, flew back the same night. One small bag, camera in his pocket, totally mobile. They went off to Little Line, and he said, "Paul, we were clouded out all the time until." Halfway through totality, he literally had 2 seconds. And unlike a lot of people, you know, who when they're under the clouds, they put their cameras away, put it in their pocket, stuff like that. Will was carrying his camera right in front of him. Bang, he snapped. He got the money shot, that 2 seconds. And here we can see a couple of prominences. We got one at 5 o'clock, we got one at kind of 8 o'clock, but then we see the solar corona. And that's what we're really wanting to see during any total solar eclipse. This outer atmosphere of the sun, which is so incredibly hot, but also is sculpted by the sun's magnetic fields. And we know that the sun is incredibly active at the moment. That's what gave us the aurora last week and is still giving us aurora now. And that is when the magnetic fields are strong, and that's why we're seeing so many of these coronal features kind of teased out in this way and sculpted by the sun's magnetic fields. Absolutely gorgeous. And you know, Will did us a great favor by grabbing that. If only he'd had a phone or something that he could have fed that through to us live, that would have been really cool.
It's just so illustrative of so many different really fantastic features that you see in totality. And I think one thing that we were talking about earlier today is just the drama that a total solar eclipse can cause in terms of power issues as well.
Yes.
There was an issue in Europe, I believe, in terms of just having this issue that the darkness was covering them for a significant period of time.
That's right. I actually found out about this before it hit the media because I've got a pal who works for one of the British power companies, and he knows what I do. And he said, "Paul, is this true? You know, we're getting some information feeding into our company that we're going to have to switch the coal-fired power stations on and the hydro power during the eclipse. Is this going to happen?" So I delved into it, and I spoke to a few people, and a few people said, "Oh no, it's hype." They said, you know, they deal with that all the time when it's cloudy. But I did some more digging, and when it's cloudy over such a large area like Europe, it's not cloudy everywhere all at the same time, right? So the eclipse basically plunged such a large area of Europe into virtually total darkness, even though they only had partial eclipses. It was virtually dark for the entire area. And don't forget, a lot of Europe, they share their energy. So when one country isn't using a lot, then the other one, you know, feeds them in. But this eclipse was totally unique in the fact that with renewable energies, this is the first eclipse to hit a major populated area which has a lot of renewable energy, especially in this case, solar power. Now, Europe generates around 90 gigawatts of solar power, and that dropped to around 56 gigawatts during the eclipse. Now, these are huge numbers. This is a huge amount of power. And for it to happen, one of the biggest issues with when cloud comes over, it kind of tends to happen gradually. So the power companies can gradually ramp up or drop down, you know, the feeds from alternative sources, the coal, fossil fuel power stations. But in this particular case, it literally dropped, you know, like a cliff, and then resumed like an upward cliff very, very quickly. And they did deal with it. There were no power outages anywhere in Europe that were reported, but only because there was some really clever planning that went on to deal with this enormous drop in solar power generation over Europe.
And so eclipses are just so profound and wide reaching in how much we just are in awe of them and how much they can just so fundamentally affect our society and daily life
Mm.
as it is. I just think that's a wonderful example of that. Not wonderful in necessarily a positive respect. There are some positive ones too, though. Uh, but yeah, it's just it's such an incredible journey to see this in the flesh. And I was hoping that you could talk with us a little bit about your own journey, Paul, through this week to get to this place with some incredible pictures you provided of us sort of walking along that route.
Yeah, well, this is on Eclipse night. So if you remember, we did a member show, didn't we? That people can still watch the
Right.
recorded version in the Clubhouse, and that was on. Wasn't that on the eve? Wasn't that on the 19th?
We had one on the 19th, and I believe we had one
Yeah.
on, I think it was the 17th as well.
Yeah, so it's the 19th is the one that I'm talking about because that was when I showed everybody where I was working and stuff like that and said, hey, listen, we're going to be working through the night. Well, I popped back here. I'm in a school now. It's a folk school. It's where we're staying. And I decided I'd better go back because we were so uncertain. We weren't able to set the equipment up outside because of the rain. So I went back to this place, which is the Maritime Training Center. And these are the photos I took on my way there at 3 o'clock in the morning. It was a stunning view. And now stick on this one a minute, Eric, because just hop back to that last one, because I was really quite hopeful at this point. This is just when I arrived. That first building you saw, that's this tower that looks over the harbor, and they train all the guys to, be pilots on the ships to bring them safely into harbor and stuff like that. This was the view that I got at this is about 4 o'clock, I guess, 4 to 5 in the morning when it started getting bright. And here was the reality that the forecast was going to be right. This is the starting of the clearing of the clouds. And for an hour or so, up until about 6 o'clock, you may remember I sent a report back to Slooh to say, hey, listen, this is looking really cool. The forecast had narrowed, right? With rain before, rain after, and in the end, on Thursday night, the window of partly cloudy skies and no rain was literally forecast for 3 hours across the eclipse. So this was great. I got really excited about this. Thought, great, this is going to be fine. So you can carry on going through these photos as we go. This is just on this balcony, so you can see this tower, this control tower that we're on. That's one of the cruise ships. If people want to go on a solar eclipse, they should think about going on a cruise because they chase holes in the cloud. And this is my office. Now, what happened was, because it kept on raining all morning, I had to take the decision. Look, do I leave it until the very last minute before the show, or even into showtime, so that if it stops raining, if it clears, I go upstairs onto the roof, climbing up that horrible balcony ladder, if you remember, which was a bit precarious, and suddenly try and set up all the equipment, the laptops and stuff like that. Hop back to that last photo, and you'll see that this is actually what I landed up deciding, that we would image through the glass. It's certainly not optimum. Any astronomer knows that when you start looking through glass, you get kind of double reflections. This particular glass was tinted as well, so that didn't help much. But it was that, or really abandon trying to get any images. So here you can see the setup that we had. We had two feeds. The left one is a high definition video feed through a small telescope. The right one is a DSLR camera through a very large zoom lens, 400mm zoom lens. But that was the thing that enabled me to suddenly zoom that back out so that we could get the lovely wide field views that we saw across the harbour and the other islands with this beautiful colouring. And then at the end of the clips, you see that last photo. That's us playing with the controls in the control tower, which remotely controls the cruise ships. So we had fun sending some of the cruisers back and forward into port for a couple of hours.
Oh man, that should be a video game that people can play. That's great.
Oh, wicked
Oh
game, I
man.
tell you.
Well, yeah, it seems like there was so much happening, but also, really, it seems like it would have been so much fun to just have this adventure, have this battle with the night sky, uh, and lots of fun activities to do too.
Yeah, I mean, it was challenging. That night, I mean, it took me, what, 3 or 4 hours just to clear up all the equipment because everything has to be packed away and stuff like that. But we had this to look forward to. This was the Eclipse Gala dinner that we were invited to. This is at that hotel that we saw in that very first shot. I hadn't eaten for 48 hours. So that was the remains of some delicious Faroese seafood and lamb, and some special eclipse, solar eclipse beer. I won't tell you how many of those I had, but suffice to say, I slept incredibly well last night when I got back here.
So they made this special for this event. That's so cool.
Well, I doubt whether they made it special, but they labeled it special. So
Oh,
I
that's good
didn't
enough
peel
for
it
me.
back to kind of see some cheap supermarket beer underneath it. And by the way, that the table on the right, that's our table. That is the expedition. So this is the two halves of our expedition. We've got the Spaniards and we've got the English speakers, and you can see how many people it takes to put one of these expeditions on. Now, some of the people there are more along for the ride and the experience, but the vast majority of these people, you can see the guy there with who's cleaning his glasses. That's Juan Carlos Casado. He is an unsung hero. We're going to see some of his photos in a second. Because he's Spanish and Spanish speaking, his images don't get as widely published as a lot of English speaking astrophotographers out there, but he does some stunning work. I mean, I don't know when are we going to see those in this show, Eric?
Oh, very soon, actually. There's
Very
just a
soon.
couple
Okay.
more.
So we'll finish this off. This was the Faroese entertainment we had. Now, if anybody is, we are not going to show you, we're not going to play you now the folk music and the dancing because folk stuff is kind of an acquired taste. But end of the show, we're going to leave you with the Faroese folk choir. So if you are into it, you can really enjoy it. But if you're not, you can quickly shut down your browser. This was lunch today. Now, I know this is kind of a bit holiday snappish, but I just wanted to give you a little flavor of what this place was like. I walked down to a restaurant. I just needed to get out of here for a bit and walked down to the harbor, had a lovely little meal. And it is such a beautiful place, a real island kind of community. That's on the way back here. That's the tower that we were broadcasting from that looks over the harbor. It looks great at night because it's kind of illuminated with pink lights, but actually in the daytime, it's a concrete fortress. So not quite so spectacular during the day.
And just without further ado, I want people to sit down, make sure you're in some place where if you're about to, if it will be okay if you faint, because we're about to see some of Juan Carlos's images, and really, it's a sight to behold. Like, just
Yeah.
drum roll, please. Like, let's get ready for this.
Look at that. Now, members will
Abs-
recognize this, Eric, from last week's show. We went to two places in the day. We went to a place called Gullfoss, which this is. This is Gullfoss Falls, waterfalls. And this is where you see, this is in Iceland, by the way, this is where you see where the Earth is ripping apart with the mid-Atlantic ridge right the way through Iceland. And this is the other place we went. This is Struckle Geyser. So this is the active geyser that was in this area of geothermal activity. And while we were doing our Aurora show, live show, which, by the way, if you're a new member out there, that's available in the Clubhouse. You must go and watch it. This was the biggest, all right, storm. Just stay on this photo as well, Eric, because I've got some other things to explain in there. But go and have a look at this show. This was the biggest geomagnetic storm almost in living history. Veteran Aurora watchers, all right, have never seen anything like it. And remember, this was my first ever view of an aurora, which has kind of totally spoilt it for me in the future. Everybody said, you will never beat it, so don't even try. But anyway, this is Struckle Geyser, and he's captured this as the geyser is going off with these beautiful, beautiful northern lights in the background. We were seeing all of the colors of the spectrum in these aurorae. And that means basically that there are several different levels of charged particles, the energy in those particles, which excite different atoms in the atmosphere. Now, you can see that the geysers there virtually just right of center, but on the left, you can see these kind of steamy fumaroles going off in the background, you know, kind of illuminated by the yellow lights. But absolutely stunning night that they had. I really wanted to go down there, but we did that live show, and I'm really proud of that show, Eric. I mean, it was just everything went right about it. The imaging went right. You know, Will Gator was superb. He's an expert on the Northern Lights. His information was so easy to understand, and I certainly learned a huge amount from that. But Juan Carlos Casado, get used to his name. He comes on all of our expeditions, and he's the official Eclipse photographer. And this gash, this mid-Atlantic ridge, where it's the only place that we can see this mid-Atlantic ridge in on land. And you've got the Eurasia plate to the east, and you've got the North American plate to the west. And gradually, new seabed is being created under the sea, but it comes to the surface in Iceland. I would certainly recommend any members, if you ever get the opportunity of going to Iceland, go. It is a spectacular place, it really is. And you see images like this, and I think it shows it, doesn't it? Hello, Eric. Come in, Earth to Eric.
It,
What more
oh
can I
yes, there was a little bit of an audio issue, really quick, but yeah, it looks like there's this somebody took like a bottle of paints and they threw
Yeah.
it onto the night sky, and these colors are mixing and mingling and just sort of
Yeah.
spreading into each other. Just particularly with this photo, it's
Yeah, he's had
absolutely
to take a very long exposure there to capture the. I mean, don't forget, obviously it was eclipse week, so it was a new moon, so there's no moonlight to illuminate the surrounding landscape. So actually, a lot of this landscape you can see. Look at the snow, and this is what we were hoping for. The snow is actually taking on the color of the aurora. You can see in the foreground there's a purple hue to this snow, and we were desperately hoping for that. What we were really hoping for was the combination of an auroral display during the total solar eclipse, because that has never been seen before. Now, that would have required some fairly special photography, but that's what we were equipped for. This is where we were staying in Iceland, and if you took one small portion of that sky image, say the little top right hand section, that's what these guys were telling me they would usually be happy if they just saw that. But the entire sky was full of these auroral displays of all manner of colors. And what surprised them, these experienced people, was just how quickly all of that was changing. You could, these people have asked me, how did it look visually? Actually, it looked incredibly similar. And look at this. You've got, once again, in the foreground, look at the stream. It's actually reflecting the green ribbons. And this is another image from one Carlos, and it's just stunning. Now, this is showing this auroral crown, which Will Gator was talking about, which basically meant that the auroral band around the polar region was directly over the top of us. These high energy particles were coming straight down, and that's why we see them kind of spanning out from us. But they were changing, Eric, just so rapidly. I thought it was going to be a little bit like watching paint dry, if I tell you the truth. I wasn't that excited. I was here for the eclipse. I wasn't that excited about seeing the northern lights. I thought it was going to be kind of, like watching a slow green cloud move across. But these things were expanding and wafting around. It was the most beautiful sight. So if anybody gets the chance, these storms are staying quite strong just over this little period of time as well. So if anybody can head north to where it is, you can go and have a look online, see auroral solar activity forecasts, and if you see a forecast close to your area, then try and get out to see them, because it is absolutely a stunning spectacle, and they don't get any better than this.
so instead of watching paint dry, it's like watching paint explode. Would that be
It was
okay to say?
it was like watching it being painted. It was, you know, if there's a God, sorry, let's not get into that. If there was a God, it was like God had his paintbrush out and was putting on this really spectacular show. But actually, probably it was more like graffiti with a spray can. It was that kind of dynamicness. It was just truly wonderful. I do wish I hadn't got caught up with one thing though. I wrote this in the Clubhouse blog. People saw what I was doing. I was sitting inside, if you remember, just with the camera just outside the building, and other visitors at this place we were staying kind of kept looking at my screen because the images were coming up on my screen. They could also see the show. And afterwards, I made a very foolish offer. I said, look, if you actually stand outside just in front of my camera, because I had this big fisheye camera on it, I said, stay still for 20 seconds and you can have an Aurora selfie. And the problem is, people saw the results immediately on the screen, so everybody wanted to do it. So I spent about an hour taking I mean, it's a bit of an oxymoron, not an oxymoron, but you can't actually take a selfie of somebody else, but you know what I mean. So these people had, in fact, I put them in the Clubhouse so people can see them. These lovely couple from Greece and all the girls who were working at this this equestrian center that we were staying at. They've got these fantastic images of them with the aurora behind them, but of course there was nobody to take my image. So I have no Aurora selfie myself.
So the one selfie you could have legitimately taken was the one that you couldn't take.
Yes. But it didn't ruin the spectacle at all. And of course, once again, I wasn't there to look at this with my own eyes, to enjoy it outside and be looking up. I was here to bring it to Slooh members. That was the whole point of it. So people do ask, how was the experience? And I said, well, actually, I was looking at it through a computer, which I don't mind
Well,
at all. I don't mind that at all.
yeah, I mean, you said it so well in that this is an experience for Slooh members, and we have this resources for
Yeah.
people in the Clubhouse. We want to really send out a warm, friendly welcome to any new members that have
Yes.
joined us during this week. There's been a lot of you that have come into the Clubhouse, and we're so excited to really interact with you. And just to give you a couple tips here. Here's a view of the Clubhouse. I'm just in here right now, scrolling around. If you didn't happen to see our Aurora show at the beginning of this week, and just scroll down a little bit, in the latest news, you can see some Clubhouse exclusive Iceland Aurora images. Those are for the ones that we didn't even include in the live show. And then we have the live show itself that you can view as well, which, both of them, I think it would be a great opportunity to just take a look at those and just drop your jaw in awe, because there's a lot of beautiful stuff there. And so there's lots of actually shows in the backlog, but that's just one of the shows that you can look at. And of course, you can look on Show Central to see lots of different channels of different subjects. We recently made a new channel for asteroids called Asteroid Array that has a lot of our different shows where we're tracking live asteroids and things like that. But so many resources. And of course, I can't forget to mention that you can always, rewatch the 2015 Total Solar Eclipse show. That was just a show to be remembered. And this is where this
Have you watched it yet? Have you watched it back?
Have I watched? I have lived it. I have lived that show. I've watched it. It's particularly just totality. It just was so amazing. And so just watching that show was such an adventure. Absolutely. And so please do explore this Clubhouse, see all these different resources that are available to you. Just lots of exciting things coming up. And if you haven't gotten enough of Aurora, we're also going to have another Northern Lights show coming this next week. Slooh's very own Bob Berman has been journeying over to Alaska during the course of this week and getting some incredible views of the aurora from that location as well. And so we're getting aurora from around the world. And so that's a Clubhouse clip that's going to be coming up very soon. And so stay tuned for that. And of course, I can't forget to mention, if you haven't had enough of eclipses, we are going to have a total lunar eclipse show coming up in just 2 weeks. So there's a lot of eclipses, there's a lot of aurora, there's a lot of content that is coming to you, going to be available to you. And we really hope that you'll take advantage of as much of that as you possibly can and want to enjoy of. We are here for you and to give you access to the night sky. And
Eric,
so thank you so much for joining us.
We haven't discussed this yet, but we will also be putting on some Clubhouse clips live from the observatories as well. As soon as we get back from the expedition here, I'm off to the observatories, probably Tenerife first, the Canary Islands, to finish the installation of the new 17-inch telescope, and then we might have to go over to Chile as well. So we will schedule in there some more Clubhouse clips, live shows from the observatory. So if any members out there are interested in knowing more about the observatories, how they run, the kind of telescopes and cameras and equipment that they're actually controlling from the comfort of their own home, then send an email to me at paul@slooh.com, or you can just write down on the Clubhouse clips page or post in the Clubhouse, and we'll make sure that we answer all those questions, because they're cool shows, aren't they?
Absolutely. More ways that you can get an idea of sort of what's going on here, how the magic works, and what we can do for you. I mean, I'm all for it, really. And so
a peek behind the curtain.
That's very true. the Wizard and the Wizard of Oz. And so, do you have any sort of last comments to last sort of feelings about this whole expedition? Then, any way to wrap it up in a nutshell before we leave people with some wonderful folk dancing from the Faroe Islands?
I think the biggest thing that I come away with is the thing that I've enjoyed most is the feedback, the emails that existing and new members have sent me, how they enjoyed the show. Some people loved the science of what we were looking at and just the actual astronomical aspect of it. Others told me about how spiritual the whole thing was for them. And that always it does take a huge amount of effort to put these expeditions on. Live astronomy is a fairly difficult thing to do at the best of times, let alone when you have to travel to do it. But we love doing it. We're well practiced at doing it. And it just makes all of that effort and work worthwhile when we hear direct from members saying, hey, listen, I thoroughly enjoyed that. And a few members actually, I can't go into details, but a few people out there who watched our coverage, Eric, it sounds really kind of tabloid to say it, but they told me it's actually changed their life. It's turned they were having a few problems and they felt like it was like a new beginning, you know? And that's kind of what people down the ages have thought about eclipses. It's kind of a new beginning. It washes everything away. So that was really my highlight. It's hearing from members that they've enjoyed what we've done. So that really does. It's so fulfilling. It makes the work so rewarding. So I would leave you with that.
Yeah, I mean, really, it's what we're here for. Here for you to access the sky and to support and entertain you. And we're so happy you're along for the ride. So thank you for joining us through this incredible total solar eclipse expedition. We appreciate your support, and we love this community, and we hope to see you again in our next live shows. We will be back very soon. So do please, in the meantime, enjoy this wonderful folk dance and tradition from the Faroe Islands. This has
This
been
is
Eric.
entertainment.
It
This
absolutely
is true
is.
entertainment.
It really is. This has been Eric and
Sorry.
Paul with Slooh.
Som sagt,